take a look at the major constitutional breaches undertaken by Congress in recent decades. The first is the ownership and/or management of broad landscapes. Federal ownership and/or management of broad landscapes include the implementation of the wildlands network, those areas that you saw on the earlier map designated in red. When the federal government undertakes this dynamic, as they have for more than 100 years, we find that they are violating Article 1, that is, deals with the legislative branch, Section 8, dealing with the legislative powers of the U.S. Constitution. So how does the federal government justify gobbling up much of the West land mass? Why does the federal government direct management on much of the rest of the western landscape? And the Department of Interior, how did that monster arise? What is the constitutional rationale? There is none. There is no constitutional authority for congressional land management. Constitutional authority for land ownership is set out in Article 1, Section 8. Congress has the power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, to become seat of the government of the United States and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be. 4. The erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. There is no mention of a need or authority for creating the Department of Interior for massive creation of wild, expansive wild lands anywhere in America. There is no authorization for the various federal forest ownership or contemporary wildland bills that are being and have been processed by Congress. The Constitution was written to protect the unalienable rights of the people, not for them to abrogate those rights. So, who is Congress working for? There is a war on American ideals, and Congress is on the wrong side. Remember, government powers are granted under the Constitution. They cannot simply be taken by a narrow mob with political frontmen seeking power and control over America's resources, and yet that is exactly what is happening. Defaulting to federal authority in the area of land and resource management is a huge mistake. Government parks should be determined and owned by states and or local governments. There is no federal authority for the ownership and management of parks and the resources that they hold. Other congressional breaches of constitutional responsibilities include the delegation of trade policy to international institutions. Congress has delegated authority over U.S. trade policy to the World Trade Organization and to various multilateral trade pact organizations. This necessarily comes at the expense of sovereignty. The effects of surrendering trade policy include a disintegrating order. An example is NAFTA, the NAFTA agreement, which establishes a 124-mile or 200-kilometer wide international zone of cooperation along our southern border. You might note that even our system of measurements is being changed. Our trade policy is also surrendered when constitutional taxing authority, set forth in Article 1, Section 9, becomes neutered. The constitutionally intended form of taxation, known as indirect taxation, consists primarily of import and excise duties that are lost to the World Trade Organization's so-called free trade requirements. It is not free trade that is being established. It is managed global trade exercised over America. This policy is designed to economically equalize nations in accordance with the Earth Charter mandate to equalize wealth within and between nations. So as a result, American industries are just lost to the globalization process. Average American earner wages are being reduced to global norms. Multinational corporations profit from the cheap, often slave labor that comes from overseas. A massive profit arrangement is protected by the World Bank from American duties. Domestic production is sacrificed, and America sinks. Managed free trade is designed to implement the Agenda 21 directive, to institutionalize multinational corporate economic control in partnership with world government agencies. It is also designed to redistribute America's wealth in accordance with the Earth Charter mandate to equalize wealth between nations. And finally, it is designed to neuter American sovereignty. The modern trade regime results in manufacturing job losses, starting with the shuttling of resource extraction activity. The consequence has been production leaves the U.S., finished goods are then imported, often from slave labor nations, always concentrating wealth into the hands of global business partners of prospective world government, while draining American capital. Prince Charles established the Sustainable Business Council with major multinational businesses. Globalist corporate coordination has occurred. American trade policy must again become American-made. America cannot surrender its trade-making power and remain a sovereign nation. You see, the sustainable problem is more than green. Another congressional long-standing abrogation of their constitutional responsibilities is the delegation of its monetary responsibilities to a globalist system of central banks, resulting in the loss of an honest monetary system. This is another congressional breach of Article 1, Section 8. This time it regards the establishment and maintenance of a central banking system within a world system of central banking. This is the indispensable ingredient for creating world government. Congress has no authority to delegate exclusive monetary system authority to a third party. But this is exactly what happens when a central bank like the Federal Reserve is formed. This accounts for at least the financial aspect of the dilemma we face. The existence of central banks like the Federal Reserve allow for the printing of money necessary to fund the globalist movement while accounting for its creation as debt owing from us. The monetary system is designed to cause a financial collapse, which allows the opportunity to further consolidate and strengthen globalist power. America will need a new monetary system. But today we must understand the issue if we are to avoid becoming trapped in an arranged future that has little regard for human life. Let's observe two facts. A pattern has begun to take form. The federal government has become an outpost of globalist authority, and now real muscle is being applied where it counts. In your community. But now, we have a place where we can effectively fight and defeat the grandest assault on liberty where it matters most, and that is in your hometown. As government prohibits resource extraction on much of the American landscape, America has become dependent on other countries for almost everything. This causes the interdependency that your children are taught about. It is designed to lead us to world government. We need to recover our ability to use our resources. We need to cause federal land to become private property or state lands. Ultimately, we need to reestablish an American-centered trade policy, and we must abolish the current fiat monetary system.